Welcome everyone to a new series. We're going to check out Project Zomboid. This first episode is going to have zero gameplay in it. We're just going to set up the map and set up our zombie spawning, our zombie population. So if you're interested in just checking out what the gameplay for this is, I suggest you move on to episode number 2. Now I'll even include a brief recap of what I'm doing in this episode and that one, just to give you an idea of how many zombies we should expect and what kind of skills my character is built with. But moving on to what I want to do in this video, I'm going to check out Custom Sandbox. Now, 90% of people are going to be doing survival, and that's fine. But I'm going to tweak the zombie settings a little bit, because I feel that although the settings that the developer gives us as a default for the normal zombie mode, what was it called again? Survival, for normal survival, I think that they're not realistic. They're good in one sense that they make for good gameplay, but they're not good in terms of realism. So I'm going to try to do a little realistic exercise. I'm going to do West Point because I like the feel of a very central downtown and then the outlying suburban area. I like that. I feel like it's more compelling and you make runs into downtown and it feels better. And ultimately it doesn't matter because these two are connected. You can travel from one to the other. So this road down here, or even a road over here, will take you into Muldraugh from here. But anyways, we'll do West Point. We'll take a look at this 4,200 population, and we'll get right into the sandbox options. The most important one here is the population. So, the default settings are some scale, some ramp up from 1.0 times whatever your population multiplier is, in this case 1, so that's 4,200. So let's just say on day 1 you start with 4,200 zombies. Now it seems like a lot, and it is. I think the most I've ever killed in a playthrough is 1,000. But if you consider the amount of space that they're spread out over, it's not so bad. Now we will use the urban-focused distribution, so they will be more centered around downtown, and the houses, they won't be out in the woods. So there's going to be a bit of troubles in the town, but I just feel like, okay, so let me justify their gameplay mechanic first before I propose my alternative. So the game will ramp up from 4,200 to, in this case, what is half of 4,200, 2,100, so 6,300 by day 28. Now that's a nice little reference to 28 days later, but I don't know if I like this idea that zombies keep increasing after almost everyone's dead. Now, a bite carries a risk of infection of 96%, which means that I'm just going to suppose that the infection rate for this disease, or for zombies, is 96%, which means that 1 out of every 25 people survived, but 24 out of every 25 became a zombie. Now that would put us at, gosh, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this math well. 40, I think maybe something like 240 people who are not infected in West Point out of the 4,200, or did I do 6,300? I already don't remember. But I don't see how that number, this 240, even if all those people are later infected after day 1, how can your population go from 4,200 to 6,300? I mean, are we taking an influx of zombies from different neighborhoods, like around the surrounding neighborhoods, or how can these zombies be created? In my opinion, it should be almost exactly the opposite. Now, again, I want to defend their viewpoint. This scaling makes sense in terms of difficulty because when you first start off, you have nothing, but you eventually develop the skills to build barricades. You find a safe house, you put all your stuff there, food and water aren't a problem, you start gaining experience, so your character physically is just better. However, I think that although that makes sense to increase the zombies so that there's more difficulty involved, I think that it should be the other way around. If you have an outbreak, the point at which you have the most number of infected people would be at the very beginning, because as they start to die off, the population dies off. So it doesn't make sense that the number actually increases. I think it should be the opposite. We should have a decrease. Now, as far as the gameplay goes, that does mean that after about 2 weeks, the game will be getting easier. And I'm not sure how this scaling works, if it's a linear scale. So if it's 1.5 on day 0, does that mean it's 1.25 on day 14? Is it exponential decrease? And does it continue to decrease, or does it flatline when you get to the peak? All these questions I don't know. And I think it would be cool to actually have a third multiplier here, which means where does it decay to exponentially at infinite time, or let's just say like 10 years. So where does your zombie population like neutralize to? That would be nice. So then you could have 2 parameters you could play with in the short term and then 1 long term. Right now I think they only have 1 like immediate and then 1 in the near future, and those are the only 2 knobs you can turn. Okay, so I've done a lot of talking about that, but let's also look at what the peak day is. For me, I like the reference to 28 days later, but I'm going to, do I want to slow or speed this up? I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it at 30, which is just going to be exactly, let me put it to 32 even, so it's just over a month. The reason for me doing that is because my respawn hours is going to be 15 days. So I want 15 days of hours before zombies respawn. So I want 2 respawns before the peak day is reached. And what I'm doing here is just greatly slowing down the amount of time zombies have, the chances zombies have to respawn back into the game. I don't think it's fair that you can wipe out a whole downtown population and then 3 days later they're all back, or a sizable number of them. Now it says it'll only respawn 10%, but that's 10% of like particular grids, so I don't know, you just get the feel that the map is repopulated with zombies pretty quickly. And I kind of want to do away with that, especially because where they're respawning in a bunch of places, but they're also redistributing. So if you were to kill 100% of the population in one grid, let's say, you'll face 10% respawning, but also zombies drifting in from the surrounding grids, and then they will respawn because they're no longer at 100%. So just in my opinion, the respawn is a little too fast, too furious. So we're going to decrease it, because what is the mechanic for respawning in a zombie apocalypse? I mean, I only can think of it 2 ways that zombies can survive for a long time, assuming that they need something to survive, like food of some kind. Either they're starving to death or they're eating each other, if they don't have any other, I don't know, alternatives. I don't think that they're eating food. I've never seen a zombie movie where the zombies are actually eating food. So unless they're eating animals and stuff, and that's all going on behind the scenes, in which case I still don't see how they would multiply, like increase, but at least their population would stay static. But in every other case, if they're eating each other or if they're just plain starving, I think that the population should be decreasing. So that's the setup I'm going to go with, and I spent a long time talking about it, but I think it's important. Another thing is, I don't want the respawning to happen right around my character, so I want to make sure that zombies have to wait 4 days before they can respawn back into an area that I've seen, which will just keep them from respawning in areas directly around me, which I think is as a gamer, you feel like that's the most intrusive when you see somebody spawning right in front of you. So we'll decrease the respawn multiplier, we'll increase the unseen hours, we'll greatly increase the number of time before a zombie respawn event occurs or ticks. And when this ticks, they'll only be able to choose locations we haven't seen recently, and not that many will respawn in, so this is all good. I'm only going to allow themselves to redistribute as well every day and a half, which means that I have a whole day and a half before I have to worry about surrounding areas redistributing. And maybe I'll even make that 48. Okay, so the rest of these I think are okay. Follow sound distance is just these meta events like choppers or gunshots going off in the background where the zombies all migrate. And that seems to work as a good redistribute mechanism all by itself. Okay, so we'll leave the rest by itself. I'm going to increase the day length to 1 hour just because I like to savor my days. For personal reasons, I like to choose June 1st. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to start at 7 a.m., which is as early as I can, with still being in daylight, which will give us a full day to get to a new safe house. Okay, next quibble I have is with water shut off. I understand electricity poles being run over or the power plant just stopping producing, all these brownouts, whatever, I don't know. Since less people are using power, there'll be less power draw, so brownouts, obviously not the mechanism that's going to be draining electricity. But water shut off, I don't understand, because water pipes are very hard to break, they're underground. I mean, if you just let the water system go, I think it would survive for quite a long time on its own. So I'm willing to give this one as much as 2 to 6 months. I would prefer if there was some middle ground here. Since they give the options like this, it doesn't make sense. Why don't they just allow you to choose exactly a mean time, like a from and a to? I guess it's a uniform distribution between these. Like if it says 0 to 30 days, I suppose each day has an equal chance of turning the water off. So this 2 to 6 months, I don't know why they couldn't just let you choose. Like I want it to be between 14 days and 60 days because that seems like a reasonable amount to me. But I don't think the water should be turning off within the first 2 weeks. It just it's very unlikely in my opinion. All right, so houses alarms. I don't think people are going to be alarming their house before the zombie apocalypse, especially since there would have been like zombies wandering around, and if you were told that alarms cause the zombies to come closer, you'd probably be turning off all your alarms. So I wish there was also a mechanism here to turn on the alarms more frequently for stores and less frequently for houses. Because if we think of someplace in Kentucky, it seems like it would be a homely community, like a friendly community where people know each other, and they wouldn't have house alarms. Whereas if you knew it was the zombie apocalypse, yeah, you'd be locking your doors. So, all right, then we'll turn up refrigeration effectiveness because I think that, well, I personally just eat food in the fridge that's been there for weeks, so maybe it's just a personal thing. And last things we're going to do, slow down erosion. I don't think we'll even make it 100 days, so it doesn't matter if it was already erosion by 100 days, but just my experience with houses is they wouldn't fall apart after 100 days. I'm going to turn farming speed to fast just because this is just gamey. I don't like to wait like hours upon hours. So if my day length is 1 hour, that means if I plant something, I have to wait like 6 in like real life hours for the farming thing to produce something. That's just for personal gratification. I don't like that slow return. Okay, everything else here is fine. I'm okay with rare loot. And I think fishing, foraging, I'll make this abundant just to speed up my XP growth. Okay, now the last thing I'm going to do, which is a little gamey, is I'm going to increase this XP multiplier to 6. I'm doing that to give myself 6 free points in skill creation because I'm going to take the slow learner, which means I have a half rate of my XP gain. So I'm just doing that because I'm trying to give myself an extra 6 points just for fun. I like to have more points to spend on my character. It's kind of fun. Okay, the only thing I'm going to change with the zombies is I'm going to make their smell bloodhound. Because just in my own opinion, if you're a zombie and you smell blood, you're going to go crazy, and they're going to, that's like, I feel like it should be a, what's the word? Like, one of their best characteristics should be their ability to smell blood. So if you're bleeding, it should be a huge detriment. Right now, you bleed, it's like, whatever, I'll just bandage. But I want it to be like, oh my gosh, I'm bleeding. So that's all the stuff we're going to say is change. So let me go ahead and name this bearding. The bearding rate. Good. Okay, so the person we're going to choose, just Thomas Watson. This is fine, and we'll make him Neckbeard Watson. Everything's fine. We're going to give him chest hair and make his vest pink and his pants green, just because I like to do that. And sure, we'll give him short hair and a full beard. Of course, a full beard. If nothing else, that's definitely what he has to be. And here's the most important thing. Now, I already have the setting available. Full mil max is definitely what I want to do. But I'll go ahead and walk us through it to get us exactly where we want to be. First of all, I want to take Burglar. One trick for your skill creation screen is that you want to choose the most number of skill point things. So, for example, I'm pointing at the screen, but you can't see. This one has +2, +2, +2, like right by my cursor. Then this one has +3, so this one has +3, this one has +4 total. You want to pick the one with the most pluses because the mechanic for this game, if I can show you from strong and stout, is stout will give you +2 at -6. Strong will give you +4 at -10. So what you see is the more skill points you get, the less per skill point it costs, which is really nice. So it incentivizes you to take the larger skill numbers. So strong is not half the cost of stout, even though it's not twice the skill points of stout, even though it's twice as good. So that's important to note, that we want to try to take skills which have the highest number of things. And I think burglar with 6 is the most. It also has all the things that I really want, so I don't care if there's another one with 7, I'll probably still choose this one. But if I'm not mistaken, it's the only one with 6. So here we have 5, so chef and repairman are pretty good too. Especially because repairman gives you carpentry, which I think is probably the most important in the game. Okay, what else? We have... okay, so let's choose burglar, and that gives us, from our unemployed, 8. The burglar, which is 6 skills, costs us 8 plus 6 is 14. So you can see that although strong gives us 4 skills that cost 10, that's 2.5 points per skill. That means that 6 skills should cost 15, but they only cost 14. So this is, again, that benefit for choosing more skills at the same time. We're actually also going to take strong and athletic and handy. So, wow. Get ready. We're going to somehow have to get 34 points back. So that's kind of insane, but we can do it. Let's just go ahead and start clicking all the negative traits. I'll explain each one as I take it, though. Handy, by the way, just gives you carpentry, which I really like. Like I said, I think it's one of the most important skills in the game. Okay, so let's go ahead, and we're going to take hypochondriac, which means if you're bit or scratched, you have a higher likelihood, I mean, not that you have a higher likelihood of being infected, but your character will display the symptoms. So you won't really know if your character is infected until you write it out to the very end. So if your character suddenly gets better, you know he was just faking it. We'll take it. Slow reader is just going to read books slower. Hemophobic is mainly a multiplayer thing. It slows down your ability to do first aid on others. We're going to take weak stomach, and we're just going to try to eat good food. We're also going to take claustrophobic, which means that when we're indoors, we're going to be very panicked, which means our vision is not going to be very good indoors, and that's a little risky to take, but we need the 4 points. So next, we're going to take prone to illness, which means that, well, basically if we eat bad food or we get diseased, we're going to be in trouble. We're also going to take hearty appetite, and this just means that we're going to have a hell of a time healing ourselves, since one of the mechanics for healing is eat a lot of food and then you get better faster. But we're also going to take slow healer, and we've already taken prone to illness and weak stomach, so if we get sick at all, it's going to be very hard for us to recover. Last, we're going to take slow learner. That's the thing I already mentioned, where we get the plus 6 points basically for free. And we increase the XP gains to 6, which means they'll be knocked back down to 3x. And that still seems reasonable enough that you gain skill points on a not too infrequent basis. Good, so now we can see that we're back up to exactly our min-max scheme, and that concludes our setup. So we're ready to play. I'm going to go ahead and call this video to a close here. I'll save it here, and we'll actually start the gameplay in the next video. So thanks for watching. This is how you died. Yes, we get it. Okay, pause, and thanks for watching.